Welcome to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. This week, we hear from Nick Hill, the head coach at Southern Illinois, as he shares his entry into the coaching profession, the process he uses to hire a staff that fits his program, and why he chooses to include his family in his work with the team. But first, a word from CoachComm.
Deuce left, check with me. If they're in quarters match, we're going to Pittsburgh or Ohio.
They're in zero.
Let's go Hippo, Seattle, wide choice. If we call the protection right, it's 6.
When a play call is the difference between winning and losing, your headset choice could be your most important decision. When the call counts, CoachComm is the only choice for clear, dependable communication. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
We got it, guys. Good job.
Now, let's get inside the headset with Coach Hill.
Coach Hill, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing good. I appreciate the time catching up. Everything's good here.
Yeah, no doubt. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, Coach, and definitely enjoyed having you in that 2019 35-135 class and getting to meet you, and then really just watching your career. You definitely have a unique one in terms of navigating the coaching profession. I know there's no cookie cutter way, but just kind of be straight shot. To head coach relatively fast is super special. So I want to kind of rewind everything back and just kind of go to those humble beginnings of where it all started. And I don't know. I'm gonna start it off with a pretty unique question here. Is football your first love, or from my understanding, you're a pretty good hooper?
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't my first love. Basketball by far was my first love, and I talk about this often just with our guys. You have no idea where life is gonna take you, where the road's gonna turn, and basketball was everything to me. Honestly, I didn't play football in high school. I'm from a little small town, DuQuoin, Illinois. It's 20 minutes from Carbondale. One road takes you right there. I still live in DuQuoin. My girls go to DuQuoin Elementary School. So I'm a homebody, but the only reason I played football in high school was just the football tradition in DuQuoin. We're small town high school football, but played for a legendary coach 28 years in a row in the playoffs. Like, I grew up going to playoff games and things like that. So I was like, man, I'm not missing out on Friday night, football. Like, this seems like pretty fun. So I was a starting quarterback for 3 years but had no interest, never went to a football camp, like as far as like a one-day camp, or went on any visits or anything. I went to team camp at Eastern Illinois with our team my senior year, but it was all basketball. I signed early at Western Kentucky in October of my senior year, and so I thought, I'd maybe be sitting here as a basketball coach one day, but never really, even dreamed or thought about being a football coach.
So that kind of moves me right to my next question. So at what point did you decide, not football nor basketball, but when did you decide you wanted to be a coach and pour back into young athletes, regardless of what sport it was?
Yeah, I knew that I always wanted to coach. From the day that I got into college, I was right into the education. I wanted to be a teacher. So I knew I was going to get my teaching degree and coach. I got my degree in special ed, and so I've always had a passion for young kids and just being in their lives, and so I knew I always wanted to coach. So what sport that was or what it was and what fashion, I obviously didn't know what that was going to be, but I always knew that I wanted to be a coach.
Absolutely. So you go play Division I basketball. I mean, that is hard. I mean, honestly, harder than football. To go being recruited to play Division I basketball. What brought you back to football? What kind of talk us through that story and how you ended up at Southern Illinois as a QB.
Yeah, so I ended up going to Western Kentucky. I was like I said, I grew up here, and whenever I was growing up, right when I was in high school, SIU went to the Sweet 16. SIU was my first basketball offer. They had offered me in both sports. Bruce Weber was the head coach at the time, and then going in that season, going into my senior year, the big summer, going into your senior year in basketball, they got a commitment from somebody else. Basically, told me, I really didn't have a spot anymore. I'm 20 minutes down the road. I still had multiple other Division I offers. Went on an official visit to West Kentucky. They had been to the tournament as well. It's not that far from here either. It's about 3 hours. So it was just a good fit. Went down there and played my freshman year. I played as a true freshman, so I didn't redshirt. But I didn't play a lot. I was probably playing 8-10 minutes a game, if that. Some games more, some games less. And I don't know what it was. My faith is number one in my life, and just had this calling. I was homesick, even being just 3 hours from home. Like I said, I don't ever deny that. That's why I feel like this job is so unique to me, is that I get to live 2 miles from my parents, and I live in the same hometown that I grew up in of 6,000 people. So I wanted to come back home. And Matt Painter was the head coach then at the time for basketball. He was on the staff with Bruce Weber before, so they had recruited me. Jerry Kill was the football coach. He had always told me, he was always the one guy that tried to talk me in. He was like, I know you think you're a basketball player, but there might become a time that you want to play football. You've always got a spot back here, and I'll have a scholarship for you if you decide to change your mind. And so, after that basketball season, my first year at West Kentucky, just something was pulling at my heart. And I told my parents, I was like, I think I'm going to try this football thing. I started going to West Kentucky's football practices and go down there, and I became buddies with some of them, obviously living in the dorms, and I was throwing the ball around. And I was like, I want to come back home. If I want to be on scholarship, I got to play football. And so Jerry Kill called him. Transferring was a lot different than it is now. There's no transfer portal or anything like that. So he honored that, brought me back on football scholarship. But I didn't want to give up basketball. So I played both sports here for a year. Okay. And then going into that next year, I was projected and had to earn the starting quarterback spot. And then I knew it was going to be too much to continue to play both, especially as the quarterback. You got to miss so much spring football, winter workouts, you're playing basketball. And so I ended up just giving up basketball and just playing football my last 2 years.
I love how just calm, cool, and collected you're telling the story. Like when you really peel back and look at it, it's like, man, most coaches would lose their mind if their quarterback or any player for that matter was missing a semester of football. I mean, you went off and you hooped, and you were basically, I guess, one playing mathematically probably a year and a half. You were not playing any football. Not just not playing. I mean, you weren't lifting the way a football player should lift. You weren't, I know you were lifting like a basketball player should lift, but it's obviously different.
Just not the same.
Yeah, and so and pretty much you must have left such an impact on Coach Kill that he felt comfortable enough to say, hey, forget this high school quarterback in Chicago I'm recruiting. I'm going to go ahead and throw this scholarship here at Nick Hill because he was that good of a high school football player from what I remember. That's like a huge deal. Now, just real quick, we're going to kind of go linearly through your story, but I do want to, as you're a head coach now, that multi-sport athlete topic, when you're going and recruiting kids, and sometimes you're showing up in the spring, you're watching kids, or you're seeing kids track times and things like that. Is that something that you strongly consider? What other sports they're involved in, how some of those sports translate to football. Do you look at any of that in your recruiting philosophy?
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. I think it's so important. I feel like if you're a great athlete, if you're going to be a great football player, you're in high school, you could probably excel at some other sports, and the best players now going into year 8, this will be my 10th year here. The best guys that we have that we've coached, they're just competitors, So to me, I'm thinking, okay, I'm in high school. I'm watching my peers. It's basketball season. Like, I don't want to be sitting in the stands, like, coming to their games. Like, I want to be out there competing. Like, I'm better than that guy. I want to compete. Yeah. Like, if it's baseball or track, it's like, well, I'm faster than that kid. We'll get out and run track then and compete, Right. And or go play you're a good youth baseball player. Then go pitch. If you're the best pitcher in the school, like, you don't need to say, like, you're going to quarterback training. Go pitch and compete. We'll have plenty of time. Like, go have fun, number one. Like, it's fun to be on a team. It's fun to compete. I think it just says something about, like, man, I want to be on a team. I want to compete. I don't want to watch somebody else be doing it. And in high school, you have an opportunity to do all of those. Only one time in your life that you're going to get to, like, hey, I get to play baseball, I get to play basketball, I get to run track, I get to play lacrosse, I get to just go compete, man. There's nothing better than that. And so I love the kids that just show that they want to compete. Honestly, I like the kids. We have several of them on our team that it's like, okay, he's not the best basketball player. You know what I mean? He's the fourth or fifth. He starts, but he scores like 6-7 points a game, but he plays his tail off, and he's a good teammate, and he likes to be on the team, and he likes to compete, and whatever the coach tells him to do, he does. And so we recruited so many kids that way. We recruited a kid out of north of Cincinnati. I went and watched him. He was a safety. I drove over there, went and watched him play basketball. I think he scored 2 points in the game. He was diving on the floor when the coach subbed him out. He had a great attitude on the bench.
Yeah.
He just had a demeanor about himself. I left there and I was like, we're going to offer this kid. I didn't go over there with a defensive coach or anything. I was over there seeing somebody else. So I went to his basketball game, and he ended up being like that when he got here.
Yeah.
Great teammate, played hard, did everything he'd ask. And you can see that in how they play other sports.
Man, that our podcast is for coaches, and majority of coaches, majority of our listeners are coaches. But that little snippet right there would be so good and so beneficial for a lot of high school kids, I think, and not necessarily just play other sports. I think they hear that from everywhere else, but to hear an FCS head ball coach saying that I went to a basketball game and watched a guy score 2 points and walked out of there saying, I'm going to offer this kid. And it was nothing about how many times the ball went through the bucket. It was the effort. It was the attitude. It was just all that kind of stuff. That's such a huge thing to hear. And, I appreciate you saying that as a head ball coach. I'm sure if we can snip that up and just throw it on social, that'll pick up some steam. Because, you're right. That stuff is important. And what I really like most about your answer is I was expecting, we like watching the center field, how he can track a ball. That makes a good receiver, but it's just like competing, man. You said competing about 5 times there. It's about competing just year-round and wanting to be the best, and those guys typically end up being great players in whatever sport it is. Now, back to you. I just want to hit on this real quick. As a coach myself, during my 10 years of coaching, I may have saw one guy, and I remember as a player, my 4 or 5 years, I saw another guy. So 2 years, I saw someone try to do the basketball football thing, and one guy actually saw do the football track thing. The dual sport athlete in college, that's a totally different story. Have you had that as a head ball coach? Have you tried to allow for anybody to do that, or is that just too tough?
We've had a couple. I think basketball, football is the toughest.
Yeah.
We've had a kid run track. We've had a kid throw. One of the linemen that was good at discus.
Yeah.
We allowed him to throw, but it's different. You know what I mean? It's some auxiliary type things.
Right.
We had a kid that graduated, was done with football, ended up pitching for our baseball team. But the overlapping sports are tough, and basketball, starts when football season's still going on. They're doing exhibition games, and there'll be a game here late in the season where there's a football game on Saturday afternoon, and then they're playing. So you enter the season after basketball's already started. The conditioning is so much different. Like you said, the lifting is so much different. The development is so much different. I think if the unique person is there, obviously you've seen Draymond Green and maybe a tight end and stuff. It's really hard for a quarterback. What are you going to do if you're the starting quarterback and there's spring practice going on? How much better can you get as a team? And not only that, I think you could maybe manage even that, get out to practice. For me, it was more like I can't be named the captain, and I'm not out there at 6 a.m. winter conditionings rolling around on the field.
Right.
And they're like, where's Nick? We wouldn't have a good team because of that. We've probably figured out the football thing, but it was just the leader's got to be there, and it's got to be down in the trenches. It's got to be in the locker room. It's got to be all those things. And I just felt a tug that I was gonna miss all those things, and I had to go all in to be the quarterback.
Absolutely. So now you're there. You left basketball in your past, at least from an official standpoint. You become the quarterback, and you finish your playing career there. You have the opportunity to go play at Arena, NFL. You just had a fantastic career as a quarterback. Once again, that itch to coach, was that just that continued to just be like, hey, when this is all done, this is what I'm going to go do? And how did you lay that foundation to be able to come back to Southern Illinois once all that was done?
Yeah, I knew I always wanted to coach, like I said. So the cool thing about arena football is that you play throughout the summer and you got the falls off. You know, the Arena Bowl was in late July, early August. So whenever I started for the 2 years in Orlando, Pat O'Hara was my head coach. Jay Gruden had just went to the UFL. Pat O'Hara now is the quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. He's been there going on, I think, year 5. And so still keep in contact with him a lot. He was my head coach for 2 years. And so right when I moved to Orlando, arena, we practice in the morning. We're done by noon, 1 o'clock. You know, I got the rest of the afternoon. So I started training quarterbacks. I got in with Dr. Phillips High School. I started to coach with them in the spring. An offensive coordinator job came open at West Orange High School in Orlando. So I went over there, got to call plays. So the season, I would go to the afternoon workouts. I was playing arena. A lot of the kids would come to the games. And then in the fall, you're off. So I coached high school football in Orlando. And then my last year of arena, I broke my ankle right at the end of the season and had to have surgery. So I actually broadcasted games on Bright House Network down there in Orlando. And that's really where I got to meet a ton of coaches that I still use my relationships now, because it was like, you know, I would call the Friday night games. So Thursday and stuff, we'd go out to practice. We'd do it, it was on TV in Central Florida. And so you got to meet all the coaches. Wow. You know, you'd interview them, talk to them. And so I got to meet everybody in Central Florida as far as the high school coaching goes. And then we ended up in 2013 moving back up here. I was the head coach at Carbondale High School. I always knew I wanted to live back in Southern Illinois. Mm-hmm. I was married at the time. We got married, and Alicia and I, and so we moved back to Carbondale, and I was the head coach in 2013 at Carbondale High School. And then in 2014, Del Lennon, the coach here at the time, Kalen DeBoer was here as the OC. He's now the head coach at Washington. There was some turnover on staff. I mean, Carbondale High School is like a mile from here. Yeah. And Coach Lennon called and was like, hey, come in. I want to meet with you for a little bit. Like, this would be a good opportunity for you to get into college. You don't have to move. You don't have to do any of that. I want you to give it a try. And so I became the quarterback coach in 2014, and I've been here ever since.
That's crazy, because on paper, as I'm kind of prepping for this podcast, I obviously saw the Carbondale High School position, but I didn't see everything that you were kind of doing in Orlando from a coaching development standpoint. You know, playing under Jerry Kill, you do arena, which is basically a different sport to a certain extent.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
In terms of like looking at it as a coach, it's just, you know, not the same number of guys on the field, you know, yada, yada, yada. So that development piece from a coaching standpoint, being able to call games for West Orange, you know, where did you go to make sure that you were the best that you could be? Not necessarily, once again, from the QB training standpoint, but just from calling plays on those Friday nights.
You know, it's something that I've talked about at some clinics, and guys come here, guys reach out to me. Hey, I'm a young head coach, and I always tell them, like, you know, enjoy this time. I didn't get that time, you know, not that when people see my story on paper, I've been super blessed. I never deny that, you know, almost like I got to start my career on second base, you know, and just fortunate from being here, playing here, the school. I owe so much to this region and school for giving me this opportunity at 30. But there's a lot that comes with that too, that you're not ready, you're not developed.
Right.
You didn't have those mentors. You didn't get to go be the GA at, you know, Alabama or whoever under the quarterback coach that really showed you the ropes. And this is how I script. This is why I script. This is how I put the game plan together. You know, here you got all these ideas, but we can't do all these things. To me, that was me just getting thrown in the fire and learning by trial and error, you know, instead of because I got thrown in it. And obviously I've had a lot of mentors that I've called and really relied on, and Coach Kill and Carl Mock as a O-line coach that was here in the NFL for a long time. And those guys and then the relationships you built, 35 under 35 and putting yourself around good people, and then just learning and consuming so much information that you can has really been and the coaches around me, John Van Dam was the first offensive coordinator that I'm 30 years old. Me and John are like the exact same age, same month, birthday, everything. He's the tight ends coach for the Tampa Bay Bucks. So he was the GA at Alabama for Nussmeier, had a connect, and then he was at Florida with Nuss there. And so I hire him, quarterback coach, OC. We're going to do this thing, we're just everything is going. And then so I learn a lot from the coaches that you hire. Hey, you've been here. This is the way that you've done it. I've always called the plays and being an offensive guy. And so I would say like that is the one piece that I didn't get. You know what I mean? I got the job at 30, but there's also like if I could go back and maybe do it all over again, I would want some of those years. Maybe the first few years were different. I was telling a parent the other day that was talking to me, and he had researched me, and he's sitting in my office recruiting his son and stuff. And I'm like, hey, I'd hope that you're sitting in front of a guy that's a lot different than, in 2016, like we've all grown together.
Right.
And you get better with reps, just like we talk to our players about. I mean, you're going to become a better play caller with reps at doing it. You're going to get better at practice schedules and off seasons with reps at doing it. It's practice. And so, I just got thrown in it at a young age to learn.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you kind of I guess we hit to where you're at Southern Illinois now. So you're the QB coach year 1, you're a co-OC year 2, year 3, you're the head ball coach at this program. Prior to that, you had this limited experience working with high schools kind of down in South in Florida. You were head coach at Carbondale, so you did get a little bit of exposure to that. But obviously, there's some major differences from a high school head football coach to a collegiate to an NFL. They all have their intricacies that make them different. And what's interesting is whether this is Nick Hill or any of these other guys that I've done these podcasts with here over the last few months that are head ball coaches, there's stuff that you're just not prepared for when you go and you're the head man and you're expected to have an answer to every last thing that happens in regards to the program. So it's a lot easier to answer the further you are away. So it's 2023 now. This was 2016. What was like one of those things that you were like, dang, I wasn't ready for this? What, budget, I don't know what it would be, but what was one of those things that kind of blindsided you in terms of being prepared?
I think that there's a lot of things. That's a tough question. I think probably in every thing of the program, every little different bucket.
Yeah.
When you're ultimately in charge of all of it,
right,
then there's going to be something that comes up that you have to make the final decision on, or you have to then go put out the fire, or you have to go down to the meeting to talk to the AD or the compliance or, budget, or what's the music going to be at the game, or how's the scoreboard, all the meetings.
Yeah.
You're kind of like, well, I didn't know it was going to be all of that. That's what I tell people all the time is that I learned quickly, probably from then, is like, I get here as early as I possibly can. From 5 a.m. to 8 o'clock are the best hours for me, because then from 8 until practice, when nobody bothers me, you don't know what's going to come. If you're trying to put on paper, like from 10 to 11:30, offensively, we're going to meet. Probably at 10:25, somebody's, lightly knocking on the door, open it like, Coach, somebody's out here to see you. Obviously the things that you can't plan for. And I think ultimately what we're in this business to do is you're in charge, for me, 110, 18 to 22-year-olds that are living real lives. And when they're deaths, real heartaches, like real tragedies, real depression, real things that, you don't want to just give them a 10-minute meeting. Like, you're going to sit in there and you're going to work this thing out with these kids. We've had it all. Siblings die, parents die. These real things that you weren't planning on. There's no playbook to go to. You got to really show them that your heart and be there. I think that all coaches should probably have some type of training. We don't get it in counseling, like, the questions to ask, the what to say, those things, because that's what you really are. I mean, you're a counselor for 110, 18 to 22 year olds, like, and we didn't go to school for that. Obviously, we have the people in place to send them to, but there's going to be in that conversations that you have to have with these guys that you want to do the best job that you can. And I think that's probably the biggest thing, is that there's just a lot that comes up that you're not planning for.
Yeah. I think about myself when I was 3 years into the profession. I say 4 years, Carbondale, head QB coach, OC, and then your first year as a head coach. And I'm really, more than anything, thinking about my network. Now, you had the opportunity to obviously go do the arena thing, pop around some NFL organizations, and play for a fantastic coach in Jerry Kill. So I'm sure your network's probably a little bit bigger than mine at that point in time. But it's like, if somebody hired me, I don't know how I would fill a staff out. And you've been doing that for 8 years. I'm sure you've seen people come and go, maybe had to have some tough conversations, let people go, things like that. What was your thought process, especially early on, in terms of, putting the right group of guys around you, for your sanity and your sake, just to make sure you got good coaches and guys that fit the program and fit what your players need?
Yeah. Though that's always tough every year, and because especially at this level, there's going to be some turnover. We've had a lot of guys that have went on and are having great careers, NFL and Power 5 and all kinds of things. Have had to have some of those tough conversations. You know what I mean? That you ultimately have to have as a head coach. But man, my first staff was all but like 2 were all Jerry Kill disciples. Yeah. Guys that I had met there, when I'd go up in clinic with them at Minnesota, okay, this GA and this guy, this analyst, I would hire them. You know what I mean? Like, Coach Kill checks them off, I'm going to hire them. Coach Kill, the special team analyst, all right, you're coming to Southern Illinois, you're the new special teams coordinator, all of those things. So couple of my past teammates were coaching in college that had a connection with Southern Illinois. And so that's how we formed the first staff, and the one thing that's different than Power 5 is, like, there's not a lot of support staff. So and then it was nine assistants. So it's like, let's find those 9 and myself, and 2 GAs and we're going, and so Coach Kill really helped me out with that first staff. And then, like you said, I mean, like, this has been huge for me, the 35 under 35. I mean, even the new list, every year I print them out and I have them there. Like, who are they selecting as good young head coaches or good coaches in the country, and I got a job. Like, I'm going to go through there. Am I looking for a corners coach? Let me check and see who they have there. Is he, at a lower level school? Does this maybe make sense for him to come here? Who do I know that knows him? And just kind of work at it that way.
Yeah, and so another thing on the topic of just being a young coach, just trying to figure some of this stuff out. And this is interesting because I had a couple guys that had some opportunities to be a head coach at 27, 29, and 30, around that age. And the biggest thing you want is you're handed the keys to this, big organization. You want it to be successful. You want to win your games on Saturdays. You want your kids to stay out of trouble and pass their classes, all the stuff that you want to do. And oddly enough, man, I kind of got the same story from multiple of these young guys. Was they burnt themselves out the first couple years just trying to make sure everything was right, have an answer for everything, call plays, be involved in every last thing, to the point where family got put on the back burner. And you, just from the jump of the story, very family oriented, you're close to your parents still, you've been there, you having that family thought process. How have you navigated, been a head ball coach, working at family work-life balance and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I think that the one thing is I would hope that every coach that ever come and gone from here that I've had the opportunity to work with and our current staff, that they would tell you that the word family gets thrown out of a lot culture, but I want them to know that they are a dad first, and maybe that's not right. I heard on another podcast, just recently, and it really got me turning. I was talking to my brother. My brother coaches high school football in St. Louis, and I was just like, I sent him the clip, and I was like, I don't know if I could ever say this or get to the point where this had to be my answer, where it was, you can't win a championship at home, and that they're obviously. Work-life balance means, it's 50-50.
Yeah.
It's not going to be 50-50. It's not going to be 50-50 if you're a firefighter or a police officer or anything, around here, my buddies are coal miners. They're not 50-50, they're on second shift. They're working days, overtime. But I want my kids to always know that I was there. If I can ever make a decision that I'm sitting here that says, like, you can, last night you can go to the swim meet and you can go put the tent up that your wife and their friends need the tent set up. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I can leave here 45 minutes early to go do that.
Yeah.
I don't care what they say. Like, I can make up the 45 minutes. Can this be here tomorrow morning when I come in? It's vacation. All the coaches are gone. I go to the swim meet. You know what I mean? Go to I tell our staff all the time, you don't have to, and I know Bruce Arians gets the clips of him saying that. I mean, they all say that, or would tell you, like, do not come in here and ask me, like, if you feel torn, like, should I go to this, or my wife needs this, or my wife's sick, and the kids, I don't know. Like, just bring them up here. I've told so many of them that, like, I truly believe this, like, your wife needs a babysitter or whatever, bring them up here in the office. I think more of, like, if you're a D lineman and the D line coach is like, son's been up here before, and he's in there in meetings, you know what I mean? He's back in the corner with his iPad and his headphones on. And I was like, your guys in there will remember more about those times, right. Like, in the story that you can tell them, like, hey, he's in here because my wife has something going on. Life is chaotic. My daughter's got this. I'm his dad first. You know what I mean? So that's why he's sitting back in there. And one day you're going to have to make some decisions that you need to be there. You need to, and so I think that they're going to see, we always talk about that. We want them to see us be good husbands and fathers. Well, the family's got to be around for them
Absolutely.
To see how you treat your wife, how you treat your kids, not just at, like, the family barbecues and stuff, but, like, up here a lot, not just at the end of practice when everybody's hugging and everything, and then we're up to our office, they go home. You got to have them over. You have to have them. You got to talk to them about the good, the bad, of what it really is about being a dad.
Yeah.
And we've got several players on our team that have kids.
Right.
And I've got a 7-week-old at home. So I have 7, 5, and 7 weeks. And I'm relating. We had a player that had one around the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're talking. And I can't imagine, you know what I mean? Like, we talked about this summer, like, being at your best, like, not be the best every day. Like, there might be a time you got to communicate. Like, I know what it's like. Like, you were up 5 times last night. The baby cried all night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You might not be at your absolute best in this sprint workout. And we get that. Right. You know what I mean? Communicate that. We know, like, okay, you haven't slept. You probably have, you know what I mean? Things are chaotic, but that doesn't mean we're going to write you off or whatever. We're going to work around this. We're going to try to help you. We're going to be there for you.
Yeah.
But we have to do that as coaches first. So I don't know if I answered the question right. I don't know if there is a balance, but I think that you just have to have a heart for your family and include them and make them feel like, they're not just like the side thing. They can come up here for a couple dinners and during the season. I try to get here super early, and I like to, obviously Sunday and Monday is tough to see the kids before they go to bed.
Yeah.
But every other night that I'm going home on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, like, I'm going to get there at least the very end to tuck in the girls. Sometimes they're calling me. It's like, hey, I'm going to be there. Like, if you're not asleep, I'm coming in to lay with you for a second. But I want to see the kids every day.
Every day, yeah. Amen, Coach. Yeah, you said, I don't know if you answered that, and you more than answer that. Clearly, you're passionate about it, and it's always exciting for me to for coaches to have that priority, because it's tough. It's tough, especially when you're sitting in your seat and you know what's sitting at the end of that game week, and you know the work and preparation that goes into it. But you also can keep the main thing, and keep family important, and not just be a word that's on the wall or on a poster. It's something you truly live. So I appreciate that. Before I let you go here, Coach, man, I've totally enjoyed it. To be honest, I don't even know if I looked at all my questions I had here. I was just kind of kept going here. So we have to bring you back for part 2 at some point in time. But 35 under 35, you mentioned that a couple times throughout the course of the podcast. You were part of that class. You know, this is my baby. This is my game day type thing, and I've just been so proud of all the guys that I've been able to get in the class and help bring its presence to kind of be what it is now, to where you as a head ball coach, you're looking at that, trying to see if there's horrible guys off that. That means a lot to me. What has it meant to you in the grand scheme of things, just being able to be a part of that class and come back and give to those guys from time to time, hopefully a lot more in the future?
Yeah, it's been unbelievable. Honestly, I didn't really know that it probably when I got selected, how big of a deal it is and has become. And it really does feel like that fraternity of guys, and past guys. And, I can remember being in the class, and I think Kenny Dillingham was in the class before me, and how passionate he was to come back and talk.
Yeah.
And just how much, like, doesn't matter if you're a Power 5 coach or a D3 coach or whatever you are in there, like the fraternity that you build with those guys. I think obviously the people you meet, the messaging that you get in those, it was just a phenomenal. It was the best convention that I've ever been to, hands down, because I got the most out of it. You know what I mean? Like, if you're lucky enough, because you go there. Sometimes you get stuck at the convention. It's like, man, you don't ever get out of the lobby because it's just like, you know what I mean? That's why I would tell our staff, like, if you're going to go and I'm going to pay for you to go, you need to get something out of it. Right. You know what I mean? And I got so much out of it that year. Just an extra motivation a little bit, like seeing your peers, what they're doing. Yeah. And then the notes that I go back to, the people that I met, the connections that I've met, that turn into year-long text. What are you doing? You know what I mean? Absolutely. Let's share a schedule. Let's do this. That I would have never met those people or got in their circle if it wasn't for that.
Coach, well, once again, I appreciate you. I look forward to getting you on this thing again for sure, because I actually got some questions I wanted to hit on and I didn't get to, just because we got into some good dialogue there. Appreciate everything that you do for the great profession. Look forward to seeing you in Nashville in 2024, and best of luck to you. And until next time, always appreciate what you do for us.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
All right.
CoachComm has been delivering tough headsets for tough teams for more than 31 years. It's why 97% of FBS teams and thousands of high schools across the country rely on CoachComm. Get the best for your team. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. If you'd like to learn more about this week's episode, head over to AFCA.com. There, you can access every episode and find corresponding show notes. Remember, you can catch every episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm on wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. While you're there, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your feedback helps us improve and grow. Keep up with the latest news by following us on social media. Connect with us at Inside the Headset, and remember to tag us when you share your favorite episodes. For more updates on all things AFCA, be sure to follow the @WeAreAFCA social media accounts. If you're not a part of the AFCA community yet, visit AFCA.com to join thousands of NFL, college, and high school coaches nationwide and across the globe. Elevate your coaching game with an AFCA membership. You'll gain exclusive access to the annual AFCA convention, magazine, digital library, and AFCA Insider email. Stay up to date with the latest stories and news on the AFCA website. More than just a convention, the AFCA offers continuous education, guidance, networking, and more. Celebrate the past and shape the future with the AFCA. It's about fostering exceptional coaches who create outstanding teams and even better individuals. Invest in your skills and make a lasting impact today by engaging with the AFCA. Your journey starts here.